What's up, everyone? On what has to be one of the most overheated days of the year, I'm going through some of the overrated bands in history. If it means anything at all, I'm not proud of this shit either. 48 years old. This is where I'm at. Not the hill, there's nothing wrong with that. But before I go any further, hey, how fucking good is that? If you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? Don't you open that trap door. So I was on the Tinterweb at lunchtime today. That's what old people say, isn't it? And I stumbled upon a discussion where it was all people sort of, you know, what are the most overrated bands in history? And I started looking through them and I thought, okay, well, I'll put 10 of them together and I'll give my thoughts. Now, I do actually enjoy pretty much all of these bands to some extent. But there are definitely bands that I like more than others. And there are definitely bands on here that I do think are overrated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 10. I'm going to give my thoughts, and I'm hoping, more importantly, that you guys will let me know what you think. Because, you know, it's comments and it helps to boost the video. One band that I saw mention a huge amount on the overrated list is Foo Fighters. And I happen to agree with this one. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Foo Fighters have done some excellent songs, and in fact that's part of my problem with them, because Foo Fighters they do excellent singles and incredible videos to go along with them, but as far as albums, I've always struggled with them a lot more. Not only that, but they haven't really done anything that's blown me away in quite a while. All right, mate. To be fair, it must be boiling with that fucking wool on. Poor bastard. Unquestionably got some great songs. I mean, what was the first album come out in 95, I think it was. I remember when that came out. There was that, I can't remember the name of the song. It's the one with the, you know, had the ball in the background just going in and out, and, you know, there's just them looking at it. Never really liked that song. Never really dug that. Or the other single from it. This Is a Call, is it maybe? Not a huge fan of that, but I always loved Easy Target. I thought that's a fucking great song. It's a really solid song, that one. Then, of course, we had The Colour and the Shape. There were some great tracks on that. And they had a solid run where they were one of the biggest bands on the planet, and they were everywhere. And as I said, not only did they have these huge singles, they had these great videos that went along with them. So I understand why they got big. But they haven't really done anything meaningful in quite a while for me. In fact, I find them quite boring now, to be honest. They're kind of straight up dad rock. Dave Grohl's always bugged me a bit as well. I'm not sure I've ever quite, you know, bought into that whole nicest man in rock. I don't know, I've always found something a bit, yeah, I'm not sure I buy that. He kind of strikes me as the sort of person who's just used to getting what he wants. Maybe that's just, I don't know, maybe that's just me being an arsehole. Yeah, he agrees. So yeah, I'm inclined to agree with this one. I think this is a solid band who did some great songs, but now whenever I hear them, I just like, oh, you know, he's always going on about being punk rock, and he's the furthest thing from it, really. You know, I admire his passion, I admire his dedication. He's clearly a very driven man, and to be fair to him as well, I don't hold the Nirvana thing against him. I think a lot of people think you know, well, you got an easy ride because of being in Nirvana and all that. I think if anything, that must have been pretty fucking difficult to go from being in a band like Nirvana and starting your own thing and actually being successful, you know. Just because you've been in one good band, that doesn't mean shit. There are plenty of people who've been in, you know, great bands and have gone nowhere after it, so I don't hold that against them at all. I do, however, think that the Foo Fighters are overrated as fuck. That doesn't mean I think they're bad, doesn't mean I don't, you know, doesn't mean I don't like a lot of their songs, because I do, but yeah, I think they're a very overrated band myself. So let me know your thoughts. Next one, this is going to be an interesting one for me, because Metallica. Now, you all know what huge Metallica fan I am. However, I'll be the first to admit that they haven't really done anything outstanding in quite a while. I think a lot of people fell off after Master of Puppets. Well, many people fell off after Kill 'Em All, let's be honest. But, you know, some people stuck around till Master. Some people fell off after Justice with the release of the Black Album. And, of course, you had the Load and Reload era, Saint Anger, and, you know, then they come back with Death Magnetic, Hardwired. Both very solid albums, but not really bringing anything new to the table. Now, this is where I've got a bit of a conundrum here, because unlike the Foo Fighters, Metallica they really brought something new. I mean, I'm not going to say they were the inventors of thrash, because Dave Mustaine, of course, invented everything. But to be fair to Dave Mustaine, he did write a lot of the classic songs off Kill 'Em All, and they had a huge hand in that, along with, of course, Slayer, Anthrax, and later Megadeth when Dave would join, and a load of other bands like Exodus as well, who never get enough credit, or Testament, though they were a bit later. Unlike Foo Fighters, Metallica were actually, they were the birth of a movement, you know what I mean? So they do have that for them. I mean, love them or hate them now, they did some quintessential thrash albums. Not only that, they evolved over the course of those first 5 albums, especially. I mean, you could argue that they've never really made the same album twice, but yeah, I'm a bit torn on this one. This is a difficult one for me, because where do you draw the line? They've definitely done better albums. It's been a long, long time since they've done anything that's blown me away. Like I said, Death Magnetic and Hardwired, I thought were actually really strong albums. There's some great songs on there. But it wasn't really anything new. It wasn't really anything groundbreaking. Whereas those first, 3 or 4 albums, wow, they really were. They were hungry. Anyone who's seen footage of them around the time of touring on Master of Puppets and Justice for All, they were hungry. You know what I mean? I want to say no. I mean, they actually, when you think of metal, Metallica is one of the first names you think of. And they genuinely, despite what they may be now, they genuinely did help usher in a whole new style of music. But where's the cut-off period now? Do they get grace because of what they did, because of what they ushered in? Or are they just overrated now? Let me know your thoughts. I'm going with no. I don't think they are overrated. Uninspired, maybe, but yeah, I'm not sure I'd go with overrated. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one. The next band I saw mentioned a lot was the Ramones. Now, I'm a big Ramones fan. I do like the Ramones. But there's no denying that, much like another band we'll get into in just a bit, they pretty much recorded the same album over and over again. Now, there were variations. They definitely had that 50s and 60s pop sensibility to a lot of their music. Something you have to take into account, they did pretty much invent punk music. I mean, of course, that was mixed with Iggy and the Stooges and bands like the MC5. But, the Ramones genuinely did create a whole new genre. I mean, or should I say they inspired one, because pretty much everyone in London who would go on to form the important punk bands, the Damned, the Clash, Sex Pistols, were at a gig in '76, I think it was, where the Ramones played in London, and pretty much everyone who was there in the audience ended up going out and forming a band themselves and making a big splash. I'm just thinking of the splash because it's so bloody hot. It's 34 degrees here right now. Imagine I just jump in a pool. Oh God, be lovely. Anyway, punk, innit, Ramones. I'm kind of inclined to agree in this one that they are overrated. So let me know your thoughts on this one. But however, they did create a movement. I do enjoy the Ramones. They might have been doing the same thing over and over, but it's damn good. It's damn fun. Like I said, with Metallica, they evolved over the course of their albums, but the Ramones didn't really. But then again, is there something to be said for a band that just sticks to their story? So there's something to be said for that as well. It's like, no, fuck you, this is who we are. We're not pandering, we're not trying to be something we're not. This is what we do. So maybe that comes into account as well. Are they overrated? I don't know. Can you say they're overrated though? I fucking love the Ramones, man. They're great. Speaking of bands who stick to their story, AC/DC. Are AC/DC overrated? Of course, their first album was '76, I think it was, with High Voltage, although I know I think there were a few different iterations of it. I think it came out in Australia first, and there were different versions of it with different songs on or whatever, but I think it was '76. High Voltage is a great album, by the way. The Bon Scott era really is great, really is solid songs. And of course, then we had Brian Johnson join the band in, was it 79 or 80? I think it was 1980, wasn't it, for Back in Black, which is a legendary album, and they've done some great stuff since then. Songs here and there mainly. Thunderstruck is still an absolute banger. But yeah, a band who really has pretty much rewrote the same song again and again. Even their latest album, again, had some enjoyable enough songs on it, but very much AC/DC. and certainly not changing. So are they overrated? Because they didn't really, did they really do anything new? I mean, you know, they kind of taken that 12-bar blues and boogie and hard rock sound, and but then again, does anybody do it like AC/DC? AC/DC have inspired so many, and you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who has a bad time at an AC/DC show. You know what I mean? I kind of want to say yes, they are overrated, you know, because it is just the same thing over and over again, isn't it? But then again, I then think of a world without AC/DC, and that sounds a bit shit, you know? Yeah, a world without AC/DC, that's a bit shit. Yeah, they're overrated. Next up, we're going to go into some territory which I'm sure are going to annoy some people. The Rolling Stones. And I kind of do think they are overrated. There's no denying the impact that they had back in the 60s and the 70s. Kind of had a trajectory similar to the Beatles in many ways, in that they started out as a kind of, you know, doing a lot more, you know, sort of the covers of the time and much more popular music, you know, kind of very, you know, happy going, people pleasing music in many ways. And but then of course, like the Beatles, they start experimenting, going their own way, and coming out with stuff like Sympathy for the Devil and Jumpin' Jack Flash and Paint It Black. And I mean, the Stones without question have some incredible songs, no denying that, but have they really done anything worthwhile since the 70s? Really? I mean, they are a legacy act, really. But then again, like AC/DC, can you imagine a world without the Rolling Stones? It's coming, they're fucking old as fuck. I think the problem I have with some of these bands, maybe from that era, they were unquestionably leading the charge and changing the way things go. But then again, there was a lot of stealing music from black musicians of the time, not crediting them. Although, to be fair, the Stones did go out their way to take bands out with them and introduce them. So you've got to hand them, you know, you've got to give them that. Again, this is like the Metallica thing, because you've got this band that come out and they really impacted the way things were at the time when they come out and influenced so many. But now I've just kind of settled back on that. They just represent that time now, really, don't they? You know? I'm going with yes. I think they are overrated. But I do like the Stones. I've got time to listen to the Stones. You know what I'm saying? My brain just stopped working there. This heat's doing me in, man. Oh my God. Last week I was up here whinging it was too bloody windy. I am a miserable bastard. Next up we have Nirvana. I know that there's going to be a lot of people who say yes, they are overrated. I'm not inclined to agree with that. Nirvana were huge for me when I was a kid. I remember that. They were one of the first really heavier bands that I got into. I remember hearing Smells Like Teen Spirit for the first time and being absolutely blown away. I've spoken about this on the channel before, but I also remember at that time hearing that song and a bunch of other friends. I'm not friends with them anymore. After me saying that I liked the song, they took the piss out of me for it and said, "Oh, it's just fucking shitty Grebo music, mate." I'm not lying. Literally within a week, the band were one of the biggest bands on the fucking planet, and everybody was talking about them. And those two same friends who took the piss out of me changed their tune and you know, tried to make out they were always into the band, which I suppose was my first interaction with posers. But the impact that Nirvana had at the time was incredible. You know, it's one of those things you don't really understand unless you were there at the time. They were just everywhere. It's absolutely insane. And I do have a lot of empathy for Cobain, because there's no way in my mind he had any idea that the band were going to get as big as they did. You know what I mean? I don't think he had the personality or the means to be able to deal with that kind of popularity. Can you imagine what that must be like? If you think about how popular the band were, if you think about the leap in popularity that the band went through from Bleach to Nevermind, that's insane. If you take Metallica, for example, they got bigger and bigger all the time, but it was over the years. They got bigger with each album, so there was this kind of steady progression, being able to get your head around what was going on. But with Nirvana, it was like they went from pretty much playing clubs to biggest band on the planet. That's got to be a hell of a lot to deal with, man. It really has. But ultimately, for me, I don't think they are overrated. I think Kurt Cobain was a genuinely fantastic songwriter. He died incredibly young, so we'll never know. It could have been that the next album that he put out was absolutely a pile of shit, but we'll never know. So he will forever be young. You know, we will only have that small amount of material that they gave us. But, you know, Nirvana were huge for me. Like I said, they were kind of one of those bridge bands for me that went from listening to regular chart music to wanting something heavier and grittier, you know what I mean? I think also that he was somebody who really wrote from the heart. It's very easy to look at a band that's that popular and kind of think, oh, well, you know, you're not really punk or you're not really edgy. But when I listen to that music, you know, that sounds like music that comes from the heart to me. So yeah, I'm going to say no. I don't think Nirvana are overrated. An incredible band. Yeah. No, I'm not having it. Now we move on to one where I'm pretty much sure I know what a lot of people are going to say for this one, and it's Guns N' Roses. I'm a bit torn on this one. I think my main problem with Guns N' Roses is the lack of new material, more than anything, you know. Appetite for Destruction, one of the greatest debuts ever. Of course, Lies was a great album. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, I think, had some amazing songs. I know a lot of people aren't so keen on those two albums. I think those two albums are fucking great. Spaghetti Incident, you know, has got some good tracks on. I never really gave it its due, really. I've never really listened to it that much, but they're unfortunately a band now that it's not, I don't know. If they put out an album now, the expectation for it is going to be so crazy that I don't think they can ever quite live up to it, you know. Me and a friend at work, he's a huge Guns N' Roses fan, so we talk about this quite a lot. I'd be interested to hear a new Guns N' Roses album without question, but when was it, 2008, something like that, Spaghetti Incident came out, which in itself was like, God knows how many years after Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. So I don't know, if he was to release an album now, I don't see how it could possibly live up to any kind of hype. So yeah, I think there's a part of me that does want to say yes. They did really change things. Again, much like Nirvana, at the time they come out, they were undeniable. It's crazy to think how huge Guns N' Roses were back then. It's absolutely insane. And they're still a great band. I know there's a lot of people who, you know, shit on Axl's vocals and all that, but they're still a great band. But unfortunately at this point, I think they are kind of just a legacy act, really. You know, still playing music from decades ago. Which you could say for a lot of the other bands. I'm inclined to agree with this one, so let me know what you think. So the next band on the list, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm inclined to agree with this one. I do think they're pretty overrated. Not to say, again, like all of them, that they haven't done some great stuff, because they have. But for me, I think the last great album they did was Californication. What was that, 1999 maybe? Or might have been early 2000s. Now I think about it, that was a great album. I really did enjoy that album a lot, and I still do. I think my problem with them, and I suppose it's the same for a lot of the bands on this list, is, you know, they had so much energy and fire at the beginning, which is what made them so, you know, unique and made people take notice. But unfortunately, something that comes along with fame, money, and therefore the comfort that goes with it, there's just I guess they kind of lose track of reality. They lose track of us, you know what I mean? Lose track of what it's like to be a regular person. Then again, if you're in a band from a very early age and you're kind of being worshipped early on, do you ever really have any kind of grasp on reality? See, I've not been blown away by much of their music for a long time, and I'm fucking sick and tired of Anthony Kiedis. The lyrics just get on my fucking nerves. California, we get it, we get it. You live in California, you like California. So I'm going with yes. I think they are overrated. But yet again, I do think, without doubt, some killer songs and some killer albums. Some of the earlier stuff, you know, it's like I was saying with Metallica earlier, where's the cut-off point? And am I being favouritist to Metallica, you see? Because everything I'm saying about Red Hot Chili Peppers you could apply to Metallica, in that they haven't really done anything groundbreaking for a long time. But I love Metallica, so fuck it, I'll let them off. Metallica, that is. Okay, this next name cropped up a ton, and I really do have a hard time accepting this one. It's the Beatles. You may or may not like the Beatles, but I don't think you can call them overrated by any means. As I was talking about the Stones earlier on, you know, they started out with their sort of covers of the time and very much the teeny bopper kind of stuff going on. Was it 1963? Did it 1963? Please me come out? 1963, yeah. But see, this is what I find truly incredible. The entire Beatles career, or at least the recorded career, of course they were doing stuff before then in Germany and all the rest of it, but their entire recorded career lasted from 63 until 70. And if you think of the evolution of the band between those 7 years, it's pretty extraordinary. Not only on a musical level, if you look at what they were doing at the beginning, as I said, that more sort of teeny bop kind of thing, but then we kind of go towards the Rubber Soul era, which is probably one of my favourite albums actually. I love that album. And then we go into the psychedelic period with Sgt. Pepper and Yellow Submarine and all the rest of it. And then ending with, was it Let It Be was the last album, wasn't it? Of course, Revolver, all that sort of stuff as well. Incredible songwriting, incredible evolution. And not only that, but they really experimented with production techniques. They were doing stuff that no one else was doing. Probably because they had the money to be able to do it, but you know, so what? They experimented with that stuff. Anyone who's seen the Peter Jackson documentary know as well. It was pretty fascinating seeing the way the guys worked and just crafted songs. They had, I've always found, as a guitar player myself, when I try and learn a Beatles song, I'm always kind of mesmerised by their chord choices. They're just perfect. They really are. Yeah, I have a hard time saying that the Beatles are overrated. I don't believe that at all. Shitty people. It's, you know, it seems the more we know about John Lennon, the more of a shite person he is, and Paul McCartney comes across as a bit of a twat as well, to be quite honest. But overrated? No, I don't think so at all. I'm sure there are a lot of you who think they are, but I don't think the Beatles are overrated one bit. Have that. Edgy, standing up for the Beatles, one of the biggest bands in history. Well done, Ben. Well done. And the final band that I saw mentioned a shit ton, though there were more, is Queen. And I have a hard time accepting this one either. I'm a huge Queen fan. If any of you watched this channel for a long time, you'll know that Queen were one of the most important bands to me in terms of my musical evolution. First band that I ever truly loved. I mean, I guess people, you know, it's easy to, I think this is one of those ones where it's more over familiarity. You know, how many times do you go to a sports game or, got some in, getting distracted there. You know, how many times you go to a sports game and you hear "We Will Rock You" or "We Are the Champions," or how many times have you heard Bohemian Rhapsody? And I think these are one of those bands where you hear stuff so much that you kind of forget you forget the incredible genius that went into it. Much like the Beatles, this were a band that experimented with production techniques tremendously. I mean, Night at the Opera, that album, is incredible for its time. It really was. Prophet Song, so damn good. Also, I think Queen are one of the only bands that I can think of, I'm sure there are others, but they're one of the few bands where all 4 band members wrote hit singles. I don't think they're overrated at all. Not for me. I'll be interested to hear from you guys about this one, so I have no doubt a lot of you will think they're overrated, but not for me at all. incredible band, did so much. I mean, they'd fucking, you know, they'd sell their soul for money. I will give them that, you know what I mean? As soon as the new fashion come in or the new trend, they'd jump on board to try and stay relevant. I will say that for them, but they did it in their own way. I mean, fucking, you know, what's the goddamn number? Hot Space. That album's pretty bad. Though no, I don't think it's bad as people make out. What am I doing? I should do a ranking at some point. So, that'll do. That's my list for you. It's quite a tough one for me to get through today because it's so damn hot. My brain is just, everything just feels so damn slow. So I'm not sure if any of my thoughts have actually meant much, or if it's just one of those drivelling videos, but well, whatever. It's out now, and you've probably watched it. If you're interested in me doing overrated metal bands, then let me know and I'll do that. As I said, this one I just kind of saw a list of these bands when I was on lunch today, and I just kind of thought, oh, okay, I can speak about these bands. I can just go out and riff. Doesn't mean I riff well, but I can do